spotlighting Hawaii's leaders.
We want to bring in Governor David Ige.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Lieutenant Governor, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us. Mayor Derek Kawakami.
Thank you so much, Senator, for being here.
Spotlighting the issues.
Where is the virus right now in our community?
How much is this overall going to cost the state?
How are you responding to the community's concerns? Talk about the level of citations that you guys are writing.
Spotlight Hawaii with Yanji Denise and Ryan Kalei-Suji on the digital platforms of the Honolulu Star-Advertiser.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Longstrugs.
Well, happy Aloha Monday. Thanks so much for starting your week off with us. I'm Yanji Denise, joined by Ryan Kalei-Suji. You know, Ryan, we've had this program on since the first lockdown in March of 2020. That's when this show launched. And a constant guest throughout this program over the last 2.5 years has been our guest today. It'll be our final interview with him in his current job.
Yeah, that's right. We want to go for the last time, welcoming in to the Hawaii State Capitol, where Governor Ige is standing by. Good morning, Governor. Thanks so much for joining us. And of course, you're muted, Governor.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Hey, 2 years and we're still running into muted mics.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Yanji. I did really want to express my appreciation to both of you. As you know, especially during the early days of the lockdown, communications and getting information out is just always very important. And I do appreciate both of you for doing your part and making sure that when there are questions in the community that wasn't clear enough, or when you wanted follow-up questions, I was glad that you allowed me this privilege of being on your program.
Well, we've always appreciated you taking the time to answer the questions, but let's dive into it, because there are still some topics. You are still governor, and the management of the state continues on for you. Let's start off with Aloha Stadium. We know that this has been something that has come up towards the end of your tenure. Your decision to use the funds that were allocated by the legislature. There has been some pushback by those within who have been working on this for some time now, who want to continue to move forward with the public-private partnership. Your thoughts as you head into your final days in office? What do you see the future of Aloha Stadium looking like right now?
Yeah, Ryan, I just really wanted to remind people that, legislature has changed their mind a couple times on Aloha Stadium pretty dramatically. And there never has been sufficient funds appropriated by the legislature to fund a private-public partnership to make the stadium work. We did look at public-private partnerships all across the country, and there's never been one involving a stadium that was financially viable. So, I'm focused on implementing the law. The legislature appropriated $350 million for design build, and we're going to pursue that outcome. We're working with the Stadium Authority to develop an MOU between DBED and the Stadium Authority. And certainly if there are others who want to delay the project further, and try to get authority from the legislature for a public-private partnership, they certainly can look at next session and try and do that. But I am focused on implementing the law. I'm focused on using the funds appropriated already. And I would like to note that there is absolutely no funds for a public-private partnership for a stadium.
I really look at this as sort of a relay race, right? That you will be handing this off to your lieutenant governor. Tell us about what you're doing to make sure that that is a smooth transition, so that there are no delays when it comes to the stadium project specifically, because it does seem like there is some daylight between where you stand and where he is likely to stand on this project.
Yeah, certainly, Yanji. We, all of the directors have been working on transition plans so that the key issues, the work remaining, those projects that are in process, we are providing white papers and description of the issues as they stand, so that there can be a seamless transition to the next administration. On the stadium, I know that Mike McCartney and others have been speaking with the governor-elect and others And so certainly we've made them aware that there are no funds appropriated for public-private partnership. And certainly if they want to go back to the legislature and they want to make changes, they certainly are free to do that. We're focused on implementing the laws as it exists. And certainly if they want to delay the project further and seek more appropriations from the legislature, they're free to do that. But I do believe that that would cause a delay in the project.
And knowing what your timeline looks like, do you think that something can be done with the remaining weeks that you have in office to get some of these foundational areas set in place before you leave office?
Ryan, we are working to get the MOU done because it'll outline what the Stadium Authority would want to see and DBID would do. And regardless of whether I'm governor or the governor-elect is governor, that would be important because that's what the law requires. For moving forward on public-private partnership, that's something that will have to be authorized and funded through the legislature. I did want to make it clear, Ryan. I've told the Stadium Authority, that I do support housing on the property. I know that many in the neighborhood boards have raised that issue. There was a request to fund infrastructure so that we can move forward with housing, but none of that was appropriated by the legislature. So there's no funding for a public-private partnership for housing development at the site, and so that's another issue. If I fully support housing at the Aloha Stadium site, that will have to be funded by the legislature.
Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the kind of housing that should go there. There's been a wide variety of proposals. Senator Stanley Chang, for one, has suggested that we do really dense housing, perhaps that are really, tall buildings and condo towers, similar to some of the developments that he has seen and shared with us from his visits to Singapore. But there are others, particularly in the neighborhood board members that we've talked to, who really want to limit that to just a few thousand units. What are your thoughts on what that balance should ultimately look like?
Yanji, I do think that first and foremost, we need to take care of public housing. There is public housing adjacent to the property, and it is definitely time for an overhaul and making an investment in that public housing project. Beyond that, I do think it's about a balance. And Yanji, I'm proud of the fact that we focused on affordable rentals, especially, and we've brought back affordable rentals to downtown Honolulu and Kaka'ako. We've been able to make state lands available and work with private developers. And for the first time in many, many, many years, we're seeing affordable senior housing in downtown, affordable rentals. We do see affordable rentals in the Kaka'ako area as well. So I do know that we have the state assistance in place to help those projects happen. And I really do believe that maximum density is not going to work for the community. It has to be a livable community, some place that people would want to call home. So I do think it's about a balance of housing, affordable housing. It would be great to create a work center. So commercial businesses, there's been some discussion of a hotel facility in that area. So I do think that all of those ideas deserve consideration. And I do support a public-private partnership for the housing and commercial development piece. I just don't believe it makes sense for the stadium.
I want to switch gears now and get an update on Red Hill, on the conversations that you're having. Are you happy with the way that things have been progressing and where things stand right now?
Ryan, I think we all agree that we'd like to see it happen faster, but I think most importantly, we want to make sure that our water is not put in jeopardy. And so I'm glad that we were successful in unpacking the lines and removing more than 1 million gallons of oil already from the facility. that does allow us to make the improvements that have been identified by the Navy that need to be made so that we can safely defuel. So, we continue to work with them to try to make sure that those improvements can happen as quickly as possible. And then we do want to get to defueling when it's safe and the facility is able to defuel without putting the aquifer at risk.
There have been some discussions about this whole closure in place idea, the idea of even perhaps repurposing the tanks themselves for some other, energy use, or it's not really clear yet what they could be used for once that fuel is all taken out. But what are your thoughts about, the Navy's idea of perhaps leaving the tanks themselves there, even if there is no fuel inside, and perhaps leveraging those into something else?
I do and have heard several different kind of proposals, Yanji, and I don't know exactly which ones are really viable and workable. I think first and foremost, we have to make sure that nothing that we do at the facility would put the aquifer in jeopardy again. And that's most important. The whole notion of pumped hydroelectric facility. We do know that hydroelectric has provided clean, renewable energy all around the world. And certainly we need to find a firm power source as we're working our way to 100% clean, renewable energy. And so, if that can be done without jeopardizing the aquifer, that's certainly something that would be a win-win for the community. Just retiring the equipment in place and leaving things, I don't know. I don't believe that that would be acceptable. We have to make sure that the facility will no longer pose a danger to the aquifer. And if you just left things alone, I'm not certain that that would be workable.
With this issue, as well as many of the other issues that you're dealing with, there's obviously going to have this transfer that happens with the governor-elect. Have you been briefing Lieutenant Governor Josh Green about some of these things? And talk a little bit about the transition that's going to happen as leadership shifts hand here in a few weeks.
Yeah, Ryan, I do think that as the governor-elect identifies cabinet members and starts to fill his leadership team, I think that that would help us facilitate the transfer. Ryan, as you may recall, there are a couple of directors that continue to serve until the end of December. And that's Suzanne Case at DLNR, Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser at Department of Agriculture, and William Isla at Hawaiian Homelands. So their terms don't end till the end of the year. So there would be continuity in those departments. We do have transition plans, and we've identified the issues that we think is most important that needs to be continued. And Ryan, there's a whole slew of civil servants in the Attorney General's office and other agencies, senior management, civil service types that are department heads and program managers that will continue and can provide that continuity of effort. So I want the public to rest assured that there will be a smooth transition during this change in leadership. And certainly there will be some decisions that the governor-elect would have to make. But I don't anticipate that there would be anything that would fall through the cracks.
What are those briefings like? I mean, given that you've worked together for such a long time already, you would think that it would be fairly, as you noted, fairly seamless, and that there is going to be a continuity, of course, of government. But, you've gone through the process of choosing department heads and choosing these leaders. Have you given him any advice, or is there, are there conversations on personnel? Or are you totally staying out of that? How does that actually work?
Yanji, I'm definitely open to provide input if they seek it. As you know, there's a transition team that's been announced by the governor-elect, and they are doing all of the screening for the cabinet. Just like the last time the Department of Human Resources has put up a website, and people interested in serving in leadership positions can submit applications. The transition team will be reviewing those applicants. We've also surveyed all of the existing cabinet members and identified those who are planning to retire and are not seeking to continue, and those that would be interested in continuing. And we've shared that information with the governor-elect and the transition team. So, those things are in place, and, certainly the uh, Governor-elect Green has been part of the cabinet, so he has been participating, and he has heard about the current status on most of the big issues that the state is working through. So there wouldn't be any surprises. He certainly has been part of the cabinet and has heard most of the discussion of the biggest issues.
So we want to maybe rewind the clock, and if you can remember, go back to your first term. So 4 years ago, the first 4 years, there were a number of issues that you've had to deal with. I mean, you had everything from the false missile alert, you had a lava flow, hurricanes, there was a Syrian refugee crisis. There was so many things when you think back to those times. Mauna Kea was also in there. During that first term, what would you say was the most challenging issue or obstacle that you faced as a leader of the state that you had to overcome and lead the state through?
Ryan, I do think, Mauna Kea was a challenge on many different fronts. That's probably the biggest issue that remains unfinished. Obviously, dealing with the lava flow, it was the largest lava flow in decades, and more than 700 homes were destroyed. And as you recall, Ryan, the lava was flowing directly toward the Puna geothermal facility, and we were extremely concerned about what would happen if there was a well blowout and the lava destroyed the facility and had a well that was open, emitting dangerous chemicals and gases that would jeopardize the community. So, I mean, I do think that those were the most difficult. As you remember, we also had that rainstorm and rain bomb on Kauai and Oahu, and we had those severe flooding, the 14 landslides that wiped out Kuhio Highway on the north shore of Kauai and isolated Haena from the rest of Kauai. Certainly was really impactful, and that was a huge challenge. But I've heard comments from our federal partners that because we engage all of the counties and we do take a team approach in responding to these emergencies, the government response was really well coordinated. And certainly we were able to provide repairs and services to the community as quickly as people could reasonably expect.
And building on that, I would imagine that in your second term, obviously COVID is the largest challenge. It certainly was for the entire community. And as a leader, it must have been very, very difficult to have to make the decisions about when to shut down and the kind of restrictions to put in place. Looking back over the full 8 years, what are you most proud of when you think about your time in office?
Thanks, Yanji. I mean, I do think first and foremost, it is the COVID-19 pandemic response. And as you do recall, Yanji, we knew very little about the disease, how it was spread. We had no effective treatment. And there was no vaccine in the early stages. And I do think that many of us thought that it might be a few months, but that we would be back to normal relatively quickly. And here we are 2.5 years later and still counting, and COVID is still with us. But I'm really proud of how the community came together. We were able to really provide support to many in our community. enhance unemployment insurance benefits, and we stood up a whole ton of programs for the first time, rental and mortgage relief programs, food distribution programs. We turned our public school system upside down and went to 100% online learning when most of our teachers were used to face-to-face teaching. And providing support for businesses, the 75 million in restaurant cards, so that we would encourage our residents to spend dollars in the restaurants to help them. In so many instances, we came together as a community to support each other. And I'm really most proud of the fact that the Commonwealth Fund had evaluated Hawaii's health response as the best in the country. We had amongst the lowest infection rates and the lowest death rates in the country. We're the only healthcare system in the country that was not overwhelmed. We had 0 days where we couldn't staff our hospitals and we had to ration care. We're the only state that did not get overrun, and we're the only state that was able to continue to provide healthcare to our community for the entire duration of the pandemic. And I think all of those just make me proud to be governor of Hawaii. We did it together. You and Ryan helping us to keep communications. We had so many discussions about what would be best before I had to take a final decision and make decisions moving forward. But clearly, Hawaii did better than any other state in the country in responding to COVID. And it is because we recognize that we're better together as a community than fighting for individual rights.
Well, oftentimes when you come to the end of a term, the talk of legacy comes up, and how you would want to how you're remembered as a governor. What do you want, or what would you want your legacy, I guess, so to speak, to be, and how for people to remember you as a leader during these last 8 years?
I do think first and foremost, Ryan is someone who kept his promises. I did ask the public for the privilege of serving as governor. And I did keep track of all the promises made. We've seen affordable housing in Kaka'ako and downtown again for the first time. Homelessness is down 25% overall, and we focused on families. So family homelessness is down more than 53%, and homeless children is down by 55%. So, we've clearly made a difference. And we had the most historic response to Native Hawaiian benefits ever in the state of Hawaii since the Hawaiian homesteading program was created more than 100 years ago. $600 million appropriated this session is the largest. We have the highest operating budgets for the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. We've expanded options to include affordable rentals on Hawaiian homestead lands. We are now providing subsistence agricultural leases. We are doing the entire range of build to own, rent to own, every concept that we can come up with to place beneficiaries on the homesteads. Has all happened under this administration. So, I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I want to be remembered as someone who has kept his promises. I do want to be remembered as someone who never lost sight about my commitment to serving the community. We put special interest to the side and always focused on serving the public.
You have the distinction of having never lost an election. So I'm curious as to what's next for you. Is politics still an option for you? Perhaps not immediately, but in the future at some point. A lot of politicians say never. So I'm curious to know if you think that you'd ever run for public office again.
Yanji, many people have asked me, and I won't rule it out completely. I mean, you never really know. I do plan to be engaged in some way. We've worked so hard on so many of these issues. Just we haven't even talked about 100% clean renewable energy or the Sustainable Hawaii Initiative and planting 100 million trees by 2030. All of those are issues that I truly care about, and certainly look forward to being able to advocate and do my part in helping Hawaii continue to lead the world in so many of these issue areas. So I would say I wouldn't completely rule out elective office. But as you know, there are many different ways to help support the community, and I'll be exploring those opportunities, trying to make the best decision I can about how to continue to contribute.
All right. So just practically speaking, you're in office for a few more weeks, obviously, as we discussed. Inauguration day, the new governor gets sworn in. What do you do right after? What are your immediate plans as soon as you vacate the grounds there of Washington Place and head back home to your district of Aiea Pearl City? What does December look like, I guess, for you?
I'm definitely, Don and I definitely taking a vacation, and we are renovating our home in Aiea, and it's not completed. We have a bunch of things that are in progress that we were able to get permits up for. There's one area of the renovation that we still have an outstanding permit. So, unfortunately, our renovations won't be completed by the end of the term. But we will be taking a couple of weeks off on vacation, and then really coming back and settling in to moving back to Aiea and just thinking about what we'd like to do to contribute in the future.
If you can't get a permit, I don't know anybody.
Governor is also in line there. He's also in the deep.
I'm surprised to hear that. Well, our time is almost out. We'd love to give you an opportunity to share a final thought with our audience today. Of course, we welcome you back when you are the former governor, when you've had some time to travel, and perhaps tell us about maybe a book project or your next run for office. Whenever you have any news, you are always welcome to come back. But for today, we'd love a final word from you.
I just would want to thank the people of Hawaii for giving me this privilege to serve. As I approach the last few weeks as governor of the state of Hawaii, I am just so proud that I can tell people that I am the governor of Hawaii because Hawaii is a very special place. And we do know that when we work together, we can do great things. And we've worked a lot together on many, many pressing issues, and we made so much progress in sustainability, in housing, in homelessness, just in getting the state's finances in order. And it is all because of the community and everyone recognizing that we are better together than apart, and being willing to help make Hawaii the kind of place that our children can choose to call home. And that is so personal for me. And I'm just so proud that all of us in Hawaii share those commitments and the commitment to future generations.
Okay, Governor David Ige joining us for the last time here on Spotlight Hawaii. We thank you for your time this morning, but also thank you for spending time with us over the last 2 years. And even before that, I mean, remember when we were doing hurricane coverage and in your office getting updates as well. It's been a joy just being able to communicate in this fashion, and again, to communicate and connect you with some of our viewers and their questions over the past few years. We've appreciated it, and we've enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much. And best of luck to you as you sunset on, and best of luck on that renovation as well. We know that can take some time.
Yeah, thanks. Aloha.
Aloha. Thanks so much.
Well, Ryan, it was really interesting to hear him ticking off some of the crises that he faced and also the accomplishments that he's most proud of. It really is a walk down memory lane. I'd forgotten about a lot of those things. We've been so fixated on the COVID response that I do suddenly remember, oh, yeah, we did have that lava flow. We had those hurricanes. Kauai suffered those floods. I mean, just on and on and on when you think of all of the challenges that this administration experienced. And Governor Ige, always such a steady hand when it comes to crisis, very even keeled in his temperament, very methodical in his decision making, and you really saw that pay dividends when it came to the COVID response. He noted there that Hawaii, by many metrics, fared the best in its response. It was very difficult, of course, challenging for so many of us in many ways. But when you hear about what he's most proud of, it really is the COVID response and how well we did, at least on the medical front, when it came to COVID-19.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, as you mentioned, the laundry list of things that he's gone through, but COVID-19 obviously taking up a lot of his time and attention in these last final years in office. But him stating some of those facts about how well Hawaii did as a whole, and him crediting not only his administration and his directors and those involved, but also the people of Hawaii for, he thanked the people of Hawaii for their resilience and for really helping to respect the decisions that were made at the time, albeit unpopular at times, but the governor saying that it was necessary and needed to get Hawaii through that very difficult run of the last 2 years. He also talked about some of the plans that he continues to work on with Aloha Stadium, despite the fact that there's only a few weeks left, he continues to work on that message of understanding, that MOU between departments, and trying to see that Aloha Stadium is one that continues to move forward under the plan where the money allocated by the legislature last legislative session would be the allocated amount for that build construction, and not necessarily pursue that private-public partnership that has been talked about as a major component of this project, saying that can come later. But right now, all efforts should be placed on just the stadium and that build out of what has been allocated from the legislature. We'll focus a little more on this on Wednesday as we talk to those within the area of the Aloha Stadium and the neighborhood that surrounds that area, and their thoughts about the governor, his plans moving forward, as well as the future of it with Governor-elect Josh Green coming in. But, interesting to just take count of where he's at right now in this time. This is transition is a very difficult time. As someone who has helped lead a transitional team between administrations, it's chaos. There's a lot of things that have to happen in a short amount of time. So it's not necessarily just kind of sitting back and letting things kind of fall into place. There's a lot of moving pieces right now going on the fifth floor.
Right. And you did hear him say that he's happy to be an advisor, if asked, but it's not clear if he will be asked or not. He did say that the lieutenant governor has been in most of the cabinet meetings, of course, and has a very good handle on, who the players are and what the jobs are that are needed to be done. But we'll see as we start to hear about, the transition team, as he noted, has been announced. Who are the major department heads going to be, and what will his cabinet, how will that all take shape? We'll be very interested to hear that. And then, what was interesting too, well, first of all, he can't get a permit. So that, that's kind of surprising. But also that he's not ruling out that he could run for office again. We don't know, if he would do that or what that would look like. He says he will stay engaged in some form, but, never count David Ige out. As we did note, he's never lost an election. As you mentioned, we are going to be speaking with the president of the Aiea Neighborhood Board, along with someone from the Aiea Community Association on Wednesday, to get their thoughts on the governor's, sort of line in the sand when it comes to the public-private partnerships on the stadium project. It'll be interesting to have some of that community impact. So we hope you join us right back here on Wednesday at 10:30.
We'll see you then. Aloha.
This episode of Spotlight Hawaii is brought to you by Long's Drugs.